It's going to be a technical talk through video. I noticed whenever I use Vimeo Record, and before I get started, you'll notice there's actually a little bit of a frame around the video. That's really not that's not really for the design. It's really to help you remember where this video was recorded on, and it helps me remember it came from the Vimeo recorder. Vimeo has a built-in integration on their free plan. A lot of integrations, in my experience, are only included on paid plans across a variety of softwares and services, which makes sense, right? But this not this video in particular, but the videos after this are for a channel that I've been kicking around that it, it's called FinFree Cloud, and the idea is that I'm not sure if it's obvious. I haven't really shopped around this idea to see what their first impression is, but FinFree Cloud is short for financial free cloud or financially free cloud. The idea of the channel is that uploading to YouTube is technically financially free to do so. There's social costs, there's emotional costs, time costs. There's basically every other cost, but to upload to YouTube, I guess when I say technically free, I mean if you want to get really technical with it, your cost, your initial capital expenditure, the device that you use to record, your phone or your camera on your or your laptop, those two, let's think of those as sunk costs. You already have the device, so from there it's financially free to upload to the cloud, and which in our cloud is YouTube. A couple other things I would say are, let me just move my window here so I can see some things. Yeah, so a couple other things I would say are on Vimeo Record. I was younger, I used to use the Google Chrome extension. Now it's built into Vimeo itself. However, there's a cap on the video. It's 30 minutes, but it's actually okay because even before I have this idea where I want to have a new idea just to make a new account, make a new YouTube channel. But I think what I'll do is just have the one channel be the FinFree Cloud, and then each playlist will be any idea that I have. So the first idea is 18M HQ, so that's 18 minutes HQ, because that's pretty helpful suffix, if you want to call it, to get a domain name or a username. So 18M HQ. I'll have to do a quick Google search on that to see what else pops up. But the idea there is to do an 18-minute video once a day. And I think the time period would be 12 months, 365 days. But I am flexible on that if it needs to be longer or shorter. That idea is based on not really having a desire to do videos online, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So by doing the 18-minute video once a day, let's just start with once a day, 365 days. I imagine after 100, I'll probably find a way to start, even if it's not enjoying it, but getting used to it, probably taking more creative risks and things of that nature. I think for this to work, it has to be a public YouTube channel. Because yes, you could record a bunch of videos on private on YouTube or on unlisted, but if the videos are public, you give yourself a chance for people to find your ideas, take the next step with your idea, and then also it's sort of a virtual well, they're technically are virtual business cards, but this YouTube channel is sort of like a virtual hub of ideas that that can be virtual hub of open sourced ideas. So this video here was really a test to check the Vimeo recorder. I'm going to connect the YouTube channel called FinFreeCloud that I just made. And to simplify things, I have one Google account that, and fun fact, when you make a Google account, I find it simpler if you're going to use Google Apps to not make a Google account with a Gmail, because you cannot change that address later. I've run into that in the past where I come up with this really fun or cool idea that I think is really cool, and I have the Gmail attached to it, but then I can't change that Gmail later. If you make a Google account, on the other hand, with an Outlook email or even a Yahoo email, anything except a Gmail, even a custom domain email, if you do that, then you can change the address later, which you might think that's kind of a moot point, and you might be right. In my experience, it's semi-important. Or maybe I'll take a step back. Instead of semi-important, it's semi-useful to do so. So in my case, I have an Outlook email address that I made a Google account with, and it also doesn't have my name attached to it, which is another thing I like about it, just to have a little bit more separation. And then I use that to make the Google account, and then you get, in my experience, you get all the Google apps except Gmail. So I already have the Outlook email to verify the account and this and that. And then from there, I sign into Vimeo with that Google account. So now it's the equivalent of a single sign-on login. And when you do create a Google account, when you go to create a YouTube channel, in my experience, you do have to create a channel with the Google username that you have. So my Outlook username that I have on Google, I had to make a channel there before I could make an additional channel. And I had heard this in the past, and I've had experience both ways with this. Sometimes if I'm using like a free Google account versus a Google Workspace paid enterprise account, there's been some discrepancies, maybe not the right word, but different challenges using one or the other for YouTube channels. But I'd gotten advice in the past that when you're making a YouTube channel, don't make it from the Gmail or the Google primary user. Actually make a channel, and you can do that after you create you technically have to create a channel with the primary username, and then you can go create a new channel. And that's what I did for FinFreeCloud. So FinFreeCloud is actually not an email address that I have, or a Google account or an Outlook account. I actually have it under a different name, which I do want to keep. I've become much more interested in privacy in the since I first started doing videos and this and that. I think personal brands are really strong, and they can definitely help jumpstart a service, a product, a business. However, I've become very much more interested for myself to be able to have a service, a product, a business that's built on, for what I would like to say, pure business fundamentals, pure service fundamentals, pure product fundamentals. And then once it has a proven use case, then the personal brand is the gasoline that's put on if the service or the product is fire, you put the gasoline on the fire and it grows from there, as opposed to I would say the popular way, and for good reason. You can jumpstart a service, a product, a business with just attaching yourself to that service, product, business right away, and talking about it, and making that human-to-human connection. for me, at least right now, we'll see how these 365. It's also scary to say 365 days. I really don't want to do this for 365 days, but the 18-minute videos once a day. Even this video was supposed to be like a 1 to 2 minute test. I'm already 11 minutes in, so I think I'm just gonna commit to that 18 minutes. And yeah, maybe I'll treat this as the first day. I really just need to make sure. I really just want to make sure this video from Vimeo with the Vimeo built-in free integration, can go right to YouTube like that. I'm also, in the past, when I did more like personal branding type of content, and I coached others on it too, I was very, as my Wall Street friends would say, I was very bullish, BULLISH, on using the phone. And for this channel, I am much less bullish on the phone, and maybe I'll talk about that in a future video. I mean, I gotta save some content ideas for myself as I move forward here. But I'm very into the using the laptop, Vimeo Record in particular, until I find an alternative that is ideally free, because we're a thin free cloud. We're trying to before any. It seems like kind of a silly thing to be concerned about, but a lot of this, it might seem like a silly thing to be concerned about, but part of this is related to past experience, where you might only think you're getting one subscription or one software, one service, and then you're like, oh, I need this other one, and then this other one, this other one. But then you're kind of in these different ecosystems of softwares, and you're not really sure which ones to delete, cancel, and this and that. And this time around, even though I imagine I could get some sort of pretty low cost AI tool to do certain things, I still would be, for the most part, more interested in saving however much on softwares until the channel is a proven entity that is generating money. I think it would make more sense to hire a virtual assistant, or in consulting or different enterprises, they might call it. Yes, you can have virtual assistants in your country, domestic virtual assistants, but a lot of times it's what's called offshore talent, and that's going back to, I don't think Tim Ferriss coined this, but there's currency arbitrage. So even really big consulting companies, the name brands that you see, they might sell a consulting project to, let's just take a New York name brand, a consulting company. They might sell a project to another New York Fortune 500 company, but then actually outsource the fundamentals, the doing of that project to an offshore talent team, and it's at a fraction of the cost. So there's a good amount of that also in video making and video editing. I imagine AI tools have come a long way since I did videos in the past. So, but I still think that there's something to be said about, you can have a bunch of softwares, automations, tools, but I almost think that before you do any of that, it might make more sense to hire, and this term is in flux. I think there's a variety of ways this term is used, a chief of staff, someone that you hire that can oversee a lot of these ideas that you're trying to put out into the world, put out into your service, your product, your business. And even though that hire costs more than any one software, for the most part, enterprise softwares could be quite pricey, so it depends. But softwares for this, when I'm saying software right now, I'm thinking more of B2C software costs. So yeah, one software might be $30 a month, another might be 10, 20. The AI softwares I find are more, and it makes sense because they're projecting more value. So like 100, 200, 300, and so on and so forth dollars a month. But that could still be much cheaper than an enterprise type of deal. enterprise software deal. So all that's to say, looking at the timer here, the countdown is about 15 minutes. So we've got 3 more minutes to go to get to 18 minutes. I do see with this channel, I don't know when I'll do it. I think for the start, just to keep things as simple as possible for myself, is to not cut out any of this. Could be interesting to watch back later and see if I approve or regret that decision. But two tools that could be interesting to use are, and this is I always thought this was a pretty name brand recognized tool. Maybe it just depends if you're in the content space, video space, but Descript, and their original pitch years ago was, we are the Word document for video editing. And I think they kind of changed to like podcast editing, or because they're doing both, promoting both. But Descript could be an interesting tool to use here. But then also I have, speaking of softwares, if you purchase a lot of softwares, I'd used a software marketplace called AppSumo. And I'm sure some of you watching might be familiar with AppSumo. That's another one where if you are familiar with it, you think it's super popular. If you've never heard of it, then you never heard of it. They do have a lot of users, a lot of customers, and basically what happens is you get to list your software, your service on there, and you sell it a lot of times at like a lifetime value package. And I imagine this is a way to not only bring in new customers, but to bring in cash to your business, but also giving value in the lifetime service, the lifetime software, because that actual software, if it wasn't bought through AppSumo, would have a monthly or yearly recurring cost. So I do, all that's to say, I don't have a Descript software subscription for that, but I have something called Wisecut. And funny enough, when I did get that software, I signed up with an email that I wanted to change later. Going back to earlier in this video where I had a great video domain name idea and I signed up for accounts with it. When I did it with AppSumo though, because the quote-unquote key was attached to that email, it didn't allow me to change the email on the Wisecut account, so I actually don't get the email notifications, which in that case I would like to, because they give you different updates of when your video is finished processing and the editing is done. So it's it was more of an inconvenience, but that's a connection I'm making now. That's one example of, when you're signing for accounts, really try to, this is my experience right now, try to pick a name that's not overly specific, overly it's kind of, I've actually heard this before, when people put together a holding company or something of that nature, the name is kind of vague in the sense that, like, I'm trying to think of we're like a venture capital firm, like Greystone Partners. I believe that's the firm of Reid Hoffman. Please fact check me on this. Reid Hoffman, one of the co-founders of LinkedIn, and I'm sure there's some story behind the Greystone name, but Greystone Ventures, if it didn't have ventures in it, you wouldn't really know what they do, or I imagine you wouldn't really know what they do. So I think for when you're signing up for accounts, try to pick a name that's not overly specific, like the quote-unquote brand name. Pick like more of like an operational name, and ideally pick one account. I don't recommend Gmail for your email account, because I like having that flexibility of, if you sign up for Google with a non-Gmail, you can edit that email address for Google, which gives you, in my experience, all of the Google apps except Gmail. So that might be a deal breaker for some, but I like having that flexibility that I can change the account name later as branding changes. I'm definitely at 18 minutes now. I think I'm at 19 and a half, almost 20 minutes. So, yeah, this is our first video. Peace.